We also received quite a bit of testimony from witnesses, a range of witnesses, about too much testing in the schools. I don't fully understand what's going on. I asked the OSSE superintendent about this. She said that the tests that they're requiring add up to 9 hours. 9 hours out of 180-day school year. The teachers union complained, there are individual schools that have complained, other groups, advocacy groups that have complained. I think some of this has to do with the required curricular tests, which I guess are weekly.
Yeah, the required curricular tests are not actually tests. They are tasks that we ask schools to administer to ensure that we're getting a deeper understanding of student mastery, especially in the year where we need to understand more about where our students are with their understanding of skills. Be clear that these are not done weekly. And again, they're not tests. But there are another layer for us to measure mastery throughout the year, which also drives our supports and interventions. So if we're serious about acceleration, which we are, we believe that this is a critical piece of information and step in the process. And we certainly appreciate the work of our teachers. We know that they're working hard. We know the demands have been great. But it's critical that we have these formative checkpoints and data that we can utilize throughout the year. And we know that this is a great way to ensure that we're accelerating learning.
Oops, I was muted. So I'm going to quit here. I'm out of time. Turn to my colleague, Louis George, for questions. Thank you, Chancellor.
Yeah, just following up on what you just said, Chancellor, are you saying RCTs aren't tests?
Correct, they're not tests. So they're tasks, and the task can come in many forms and fashion. So they're tasks in which a student would be asked to complete that gives us an idea of their understanding of a particular topic. So for example, a student may be asked to write a short essay on a topic, or a student may be asked to provide a performance, or it could be a short paragraph, or it could be a brief quiz. So there are a number of different ways in which these tasks are presented, but they're not designed to be standardized tests. I just want to be clear.
Educators are seeing these as tests, right? I mean, I'm not sure what a formative checkpoint is besides a test. I
think of formative as an assessment that's much more informal than a standardized test. So for example, you may ask students to draw a bar graph that represents 5 data points. And if they're able to complete that task, that gives us a check for their understanding that they have mastered that grade level content. And we see that very much different than a test where, you know, you're bubbling in A, B, C, D, or something that is a little bit more formal and graded. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think there's going to be a large disagreements because, you know, of what we're hearing. And do teachers make up their own RCTs, or are they provided with them?
So we provided to teachers, so we are able to get a consistent measure of understanding across the district.
So that's what makes it a test, right? Because it's not something it's not like teachers are creating it on their own. It's something that's given to them as a way like that they have to have their students do or check off. So I think that's where it's going. I don't know that we're gonna, you know, I guess we can agree to disagree that the formative checkpoint is basically a test. But I think what we can agree on, I know, is that we heard from educators about sort of this formative checkpoint as it relates to being a standardized test as a part of the reasons, you know, a lot of frustration of for teachers and their ability to sort of do their job and do their curriculum, and it feels like a heavy burden. It's feeling like a heavy burden on them. And I know you all brought in Dr. Kendi, Dr. Love, to speak about sort of educators and sort of all this, anti-racism work. And in both occasions, I think both of them talked about standardized testing as sort of tools that go against sort of, anti-racism work. And so, hearing them come in and say that, and also then hearing from educators that standardized testing has really increased dramatically this past year, particularly through RCTs. I don't know that we're moving in the right direction, and we're not helping with sort of retention either.
Yeah, we I mean, at the end of the day, what you're raising, and I hear you loud and clearly, and it's something that we've addressed, and we'll continue to listen to our teachers, is they see this as an extra demand. I think we could, potentially debate about, the test. I will say Dr. Kendi would argue for consistency as an equity play. So each teacher is not utilizing their own way of checking for understanding, and has also emphasized the point of looking at different data points beyond the traditional standardized test as a way of measuring proficiency. So we see this as a part of our curriculum, just like we ask teachers to use the same text, the same books, the same materials for consistency. We ask them to use the same materials for their RCTs. But again, I want to recognize that we have heard concerns, and we will continue to listen and be responsive.
Okay. I want to ask you, and I'm going to come back to that section in a little bit, but I want to ask about the school security contract.